My name is Brielle, and I'm 29 years old, and this Christmas was supposed to be the happiest one in years. I've always loved the holidays, the warm lights, the scent of cinnamon and pine, the laughter that fills the house even before the first present is opened. Christmas has always meant comfort to me. Maybe it's because I grew up watching my mother make everything sparkle, or maybe because it was the one time of year everyone pretended to get along. But this year felt different. I was trying my hardest to make it special, even though life had taken a few cruel turns. Earlier that year, I lost my job at a marketing firm where I'd worked for 5 years. Downsizing, they said. It happened 2 weeks before my birthday. I remember sitting in my tiny apartment, staring at my last paycheck, wondering how I'd manage rent. In the end, I swallowed my pride and called my older sister, Marcy, who offered to let me move into her spare room just until I got back on my feet. Living with her wasn't easy. Marcy had always been the successful one, the one who could afford designer clothes and overseas vacations. Her friends called her the star of the family. Me? I was the creative one, the sentimental one, the one who made homemade gifts and wrote heartfelt letters. And in our family, sentiment didn't go very far. My parents had built a culture around luxury. Every Christmas, it was like a competition who could bring the most expensive gifts, who could outshine the other in generosity. I'd always found it exhausting. But this year, with my savings almost gone, I had to be smart. I couldn't show up empty-handed, but I couldn't spend what I didn't have either. That's when I got an idea. It started one night while I was scrolling through online stores, trying to find something small yet meaningful. I stumbled across a site offering customizable digital gift cards that could be loaded with any amount of money. The cards came with options to include secret notes, quotes, or even hidden bonuses redeemable at certain partner stores. My mind sparked. What if I gave everyone something small but layered with meaning? Something that said, I still care, even when I couldn't spend much? I didn't want to compete, I wanted to connect. I decided to buy each family member a simple card, each decorated differently to suit their personality. For my mom, a floral print with gold trim. For my dad, a classic navy blue card. For Marcy, a sleek black one with her initials engraved. For my cousin Fiona, a pink one covered in stars. She'd always loved sparkly things. Even my younger cousin Mia got one with a cute reindeer design. Each card had something personal written inside, a note from me about what they meant to me. What they didn't know was that each card also carried something far more valuable than they could imagine. I loaded each with a surprise, an amount of money that would shock them if they ever looked past the surface. I told myself that giving was about love, not showmanship. Still, a small part of me wondered how they'd react. Would they smile and thank me? Or would they judge me again, the same way they always did? The night before Christmas, I sat on the edge of my bed, wrapping each card in modest paper and tying it with thin ribbon. My fingers trembled slightly, not from fear, but from emotion. For me, this wasn't just a gift exchange. It was a quiet rebellion. It was my way of saying I could still bring joy even without luxury. I looked at the little pile of envelopes stacked neatly on my desk and felt proud. Each one held a story, a message, and a bit of my heart. I whispered to myself, maybe this year they'll see me differently. But deep down, I wasn't sure. I'd been underestimated for so long that it felt impossible to imagine them seeing me as anything but the broke one. Still, I believed in the spirit of Christmas. I believed kindness could surprise people. I believed maybe, just maybe, this would be the Christmas that brought my family back together. The next morning, I dressed in my favorite red sweater, brushed my hair, and looked at myself in the mirror. My reflection smiled nervously back. I was ready. I tucked the envelopes into my bag, took a deep breath, and whispered, here goes nothing. When I stepped outside, snow was falling gently, coating the streets in white. Everything looked peaceful, almost magical. I felt that familiar childlike excitement, the one that always came before Christmas dinner at my parents' house. I imagined laughter, warmth, and love waiting for me. But as the wind brushed my face and the cold seeped through my gloves, a strange unease lingered. It was as if my heart already knew something was coming, something that would change everything. But I had no idea my simple gesture would become the biggest joke of the evening. The house smelled like pine and cinnamon, but under that warmth was something colder: judgment. I arrived at my parents' home just before sunset, and the scene was straight out of a Christmas movie. The driveway was lined with luxury cars, and soft music spilled from the open front door. Inside, golden lights twinkled around a 12-foot tree covered in glass ornaments, and the air smelled like roasted ham and spiced cider. But beneath the glamour, I could feel the same tension that always came with family gatherings, unspoken comparisons, and polite smiles that hid quiet competition. My mother greeted me with a practiced smile. "Brielle, you made it," she said, kissing my cheek while her eyes swept over my modest coat. "You didn't have to dress so casually, dear." I swallowed a sigh and smiled. "Merry Christmas, Mom. You look beautiful." She did, in a sequin dress that probably cost more than my rent. My father was by the fireplace, swirling a glass of wine and laughing with Marcy's husband, Trevor. They were deep in conversation about real estate investments. Marcy stood nearby, her blonde hair perfectly curled, wearing a new designer dress. She looked radiant, and she knew it. When she saw me, she smiled politely. "You made it on time for once," she said, her tone sugary but sharp. "I wasn't sure if you'd be able to make it this year." "Of course," I replied softly. "I wouldn't miss Christmas." "That's great," she said, glancing at the plain paper bag in my hand. "What did you bring?" "Just a few small things," I said, clutching the bag protectively. She gave a little smirk. "Well, Fiona brought a new watch for Dad, and Trevor got Mom that Italian perfume she's been wanting." Fiona, my cousin, turned around just in time to join in. She was always eager to one-up everyone. "Oh, and wait till you see the diamond bracelet Trevor got Marcy," she added, flashing her own new jewelry. "It's so stunning." I smiled, doing my best to hide how uncomfortable I felt. It was always like this, everything was about brands, price tags, and appearance. I slipped my gift bag under the tree and went to help my mom in the kitchen, trying to stay out of the spotlight. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of champagne glasses, laughter, and not-so-subtle bragging. Every conversation revolved around money, new jobs, new cars, new vacations. No one asked how I was doing, and I didn't offer. I just kept reminding myself why I was there, to bring some warmth back into this family, no matter how superficial things got. When dinner was served, the table looked like something out of a magazine. Roasted duck, mashed potatoes with truffle oil, cranberry sauce shaped like roses. It was beautiful but cold in its perfection. Between bites, my dad asked, "So, Brielle, how's the job hunt going?" The question hung in the air, heavy and expectant. I smiled politely. "It's going. I've been doing some freelance work in the meantime." Fiona chuckled softly. "Freelance, huh? That's brave," she said, her tone dripping with condescension. Marcy added, "Maybe next year you'll find something more stable." I wanted to disappear into my chair. My mother quickly changed the subject, talking about her plans for a family vacation in Europe. I quietly sipped my water, counting the minutes until we'd exchange gifts and I could leave. When the time finally came, everyone gathered around the Christmas tree. Wrapping paper crinkled, ribbons unraveled, and gasps filled the room as expensive presents were revealed. A designer handbag for Marcy, a luxury watch for Dad, a rare bottle of wine for Mom. And then, all eyes turned to me. I took a deep breath and reached into my bag. "These are for everyone," I said, handing out the envelopes one by one. The room fell silent. My father raised an eyebrow. "Gift cards?" he asked, turning it over. "Yes," I said quickly, "but they're special. Each one." I didn't even get to finish before Fiona let out a laugh. "Oh my God, Brielle, did you really just give us gift cards?" she said, shaking her head. Marcy snorted, covering her mouth. "That's sweet. Kind of old-fashioned, don't you think?" My mother looked at hers with a forced smile. "It's thoughtful, dear," she said, though her tone sounded more like pity. Trevor leaned back in his chair. "Wow, that's definitely a first. Haven't seen gift cards under this tree before." Laughter bubbled through the room. I tried to stay calm. "They're not just regular cards," I explained. "Each one has a sentimental message?" Marcy interrupted, chuckling. "You really don't have to overdo it, Brielle. We understand you're going through a tough time." I felt my cheeks burn. My father sighed and put his down on the table. "It's fine," he said. "It's the thought that counts." Fiona giggled again. "Yeah, a very minimal thought." The laughter grew, and I could feel my throat tightening. No one cared to open the envelopes or even glance at the small notes I'd written inside. They had already decided my gifts weren't worth anything. I sat there, trying to smile, pretending it didn't hurt, but my chest ached. I looked around the room, every glittering light, every perfect decoration suddenly felt hollow. My heart pounded as I realized that no matter how much I tried, they'd never see me as equal. Then, one by one, they laughed at me as if I'd just handed them scraps. Their laughter echoed through the living room like cruel bells. It wasn't the kind of laughter that came from joy, it was sharp, mocking, and cold, the kind of sound that slices right through your heart. My mother tried to disguise hers behind a polite smile, but I could see the amusement in her eyes. My father chuckled under his breath, shaking his head. Fiona's laughter was the loudest. She leaned back on the sofa, clutching her stomach like she'd just heard the funniest joke of her life. Marcy covered her mouth, pretending to be shocked, but I could see the smirk curling her lips. "Oh, Brielle," she said between giggles. "You're just too adorable sometimes." "Gift cards? Really? That's creative," Fiona chimed in. "Yeah, I mean, are these from a grocery store or something?" So old school. My stomach twisted. I tried to speak, to explain, but my voice trembled. "They're not just gift cards," I said quietly. "They're special, each one has." "A discount code?" Trevor interrupted with a laugh. "Come on, this is priceless." My father's face hardened as he set his glass down. "You could have at least put in a little more effort, Brielle. It's Christmas, not a charity drive." His words stung more than I expected. I had spent hours choosing and preparing those cards. I'd written heartfelt notes inside, personal messages that I thought might actually touch them. But they hadn't even bothered to open them. Fiona waved hers dramatically in the air. "You know what? Maybe I'll use this to buy some batteries," she said, laughing again. Marcy snorted. "Maybe gas money." Even my mother, who usually tried to play peacemaker, sighed softly and said, "It's the thought that counts, dear. Maybe next year you can plan ahead." My chest tightened. I could feel tears threatening to spill, but I refused to let them see me cry. I took a deep breath and forced a small smile. "It's okay," I said softly. "I just wanted to give something simple, something from the heart." "Well, that's nice," Fiona said with a mockingly sweet tone. "But next time, skip the heart and go for something useful." The room erupted with laughter again. I looked around the room at the twinkling lights, the perfectly decorated tree, the piles of expensive wrapping paper littering the floor, and suddenly, it all felt meaningless. My mother leaned over and whispered, "Don't take it personally, Brielle. You know how your sister and cousin get. They're just teasing." But it wasn't teasing. It was humiliation, dressed as humor. Every word chipped away at my dignity. Every smirk reminded me that I didn't belong in their world of designer dresses and high-priced smiles. My father poured himself another drink, muttering, "You really should have thought this through." I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. Fiona continued to joke, pretending to fan herself dramatically. "Oh, I can't wait to spend my $5 of freedom." The others laughed again, and I felt something inside me snap, not in anger, but in quiet resolve. If they wanted to think I was beneath them, I'd let them. But I knew something they didn't. I glanced at the tree where the cards now sat, carelessly tossed aside. My mother's was resting under a pile of wrapping paper. My father's had slipped halfway under the table. Marcy's lay, unopened, next to her wine glass. None of them realized what they were holding. None of them knew those cheap cards carried more than their expensive jewelry combined. I looked across the room and caught Mia's eyes. She was my younger cousin, barely 20, and unlike the others, her laughter had faded early. She looked uncomfortable, her gaze full of pity. When our eyes met, she gave me a small, apologetic smile. That tiny gesture meant everything. It reminded me that not everyone in that room had a heart made of gold plating. "Excuse me," I murmured, standing up. "I'm just going to get some water." Marcy looked up, still smiling. "Don't be upset, Brielle. We're just teasing. It's all in good fun." I forced a nod. "Of course," I said. "I'm fine." But as I stepped into the kitchen, I wasn't fine. My chest felt heavy, my throat tight. I gripped the counter and stared at the reflection of the living room lights glimmering off the polished sink. Their laughter still echoed faintly behind me, like ghosts whispering in my ear. I closed my eyes, took a shaky breath, and whispered to myself, "You wanted them to see your heart, and all they saw was the price tag." My hands were trembling, but not from sadness anymore. It was something else, something colder. I wasn't the kind of person who sought revenge. But in that moment, I realized they didn't deserve my kindness, not yet. I wanted them to learn. I wanted them to see what true generosity looked like, not through expensive gifts, but through humility and grace. And maybe, just maybe, through shock. I wiped my eyes, straightened my shoulders, and walked back into the room. They didn't even notice I was gone. My father was laughing at something Fiona said. Marcy was scrolling through her phone. The tree sparkled behind them, oblivious to the ugliness around it. I sat quietly on the couch, watching them, memorizing every smirk and careless word. And as I did, a small, knowing smile crept across my face. That's when I decided they would learn exactly what those cheap cards were worth. You see, what no one knew was that those gift cards weren't ordinary at all. Everyone thought they'd just received a $5 throwaway token, but each one of those little envelopes carried more value than every wrapped box under that tree. I'd spent weeks planning it, making sure every card was registered, loaded, and personalized down to the cent. The irony was almost poetic. My family, obsessed with appearances, had tossed aside small envelopes worth thousands. But that wasn't even the best part. The cards weren't random store vouchers. I had purchased them through a luxury retailer's hidden loyalty program, something most people didn't even know existed. Each card carried anywhere from $2,000 to $5,000 in value, depending on the person. And because of the way the program worked, every card was tied to my name until activated. Meaning, unless they opened them properly and followed the included instructions, they wouldn't even realize what they had. That was the beauty of it. Their ignorance had robbed them of the very thing they claimed to value most: money. The idea hadn't come out of nowhere. 2 months earlier, I'd received a settlement from a wrongful termination lawsuit against my former employer. It wasn't millions, but it was enough to start over. I'd planned to save it, maybe use it to move out of Marcy's house. But as Christmas approached, I decided to do something different. My family had always measured worth in dollars, so I wanted to show them something more profound. I wanted to give them a gift that could either reveal their character or expose it. And the best part? I didn't even need to lift a finger for that to happen. It would reveal itself naturally. As I sat there in the aftermath of their laughter, watching them drink and chatter, I almost laughed myself. They had no idea that those little cards they mocked were holding enough money to pay for their next lavish trip or fund their next luxury purchase. I thought about telling them, but a stronger part of me whispered, no, let them find out on their own. I wanted them to feel the sting of realization the moment they'd discover the truth and remember how cruel they had been. It wasn't about revenge. It was about justice wrapped in tinsel. I sat quietly on the couch while the others opened more presents. Fiona squealed over her new diamond earrings. Marcy showed off her bracelet, letting it glint in the light. My mother gushed over her perfume. Not a single one of them mentioned my cards again. They'd already moved on, like I'd given them something insignificant. It was funny, really. If they had just taken a few seconds to read the enclosed notes, they'd have seen the activation details written clearly at the bottom right beneath the message about love and gratitude. But they hadn't. They didn't care enough to look. I excused myself early that night, telling everyone I was tired. Marcy waved me off absently, already busy snapping pictures of her gifts for social media. My parents kissed me goodbye and told me to drive safe. No one noticed the quiet confidence in my eyes as I walked out into the snowy night. The cold air bit my cheeks, but it felt good, refreshing, cleansing. As I walked to my car, I thought about what had just happened. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like the weak one. Their laughter no longer hurt. It amused me. They had handed me power without realizing it. They had turned themselves into the punchline of their own arrogance. I drove home, humming along to a Christmas song on the radio. My phone buzzed with a text from Mia. Hey, I'm sorry about earlier. They were being awful. I liked your gift, by the way. I think it's sweet. I smiled. At least one person had heart. Thanks, Mia, I replied. Keep your card somewhere safe, okay? It might be worth more than you think, she responded with a heart emoji. I set my phone down and laughed softly. If only they all knew. When I got home, I poured myself a cup of cocoa and sat by the window, watching the snow fall. The city lights twinkled through the flakes, and for the first time in a long while, I felt at peace. I didn't need their approval. I didn't need to prove anything. I had done what I believed was right, and fate would take care of the rest. I could almost picture it, one of them finally checking their card balance out of curiosity. maybe days or weeks later, expecting to find a trivial amount. Their expression would change from amusement to disbelief as the screen revealed thousands of dollars. I smiled at the thought. Christmas miracles come in many forms. Some sparkle under the tree. Others lie hidden in plain sight, waiting to humble those who think they already have everything. That night, as I climbed into bed, the warmth of quiet satisfaction spread through me. I didn't know when they'd find out. Maybe tomorrow, maybe next week. But they would find out. And when they did, I hoped they'd think back to that moment of laughter and feel the sting of shame burn through their pride. I wasn't going to call them out. I wasn't going to defend myself. I didn't have to. Truth, like karma, has perfect timing, and I had just set both in motion. And oh, it did faster and louder than I could have imagined. The next morning, chaos erupted over breakfast. I woke up to the sound of my phone buzzing nonstop on the nightstand. At first, I thought it was just spam messages or some holiday sale notification, but when I picked it up, I saw my cousin Fiona's name flashing across the screen, followed by several missed calls from Marcy and my mother. My stomach flipped. I hadn't expected them to find out so soon. I answered the call, keeping my voice steady. "Hello? Brielle." Fiona's voice was shrill, a mix of shock and disbelief. Did you know what's on these cards?" I smiled to myself. "What do you mean?" "Don't play dumb. My card, your card, whatever, it's showing a balance of $3,000. I thought it was a glitch, but I called the number on the back, and they confirmed it's real." Her words came fast, tumbling over each other. I could almost picture her pacing her living room, clutching the card she had mocked the night before. 3,000? I repeated calmly, pretending to be surprised. "That's strange. Maybe they sent you the wrong one." "Brielle," she hissed, "don't you dare joke right now. Everyone's losing their minds over this. Did you seriously give us gift cards with that much money on them?" "Maybe," I said, my tone light. "I just wanted to give something meaningful." "Meaningful?" she shrieked. "You gave us thousands of dollars and didn't say anything?" "Well," I said, "you didn't really give me a chance to explain last night." There was a long silence before she mumbled, "Oh," and then, without another word, she hung up. I sat there for a moment, letting the satisfaction wash over me. Then, not 2 minutes later, Marcy called. "Brielle," she said, breathless. "Is this some kind of joke? My card says it's worth $5,000. I smiled. "No joke. 5,000, she repeated, as if trying to process it. You shouldn't have done that. That's insane." "I wanted to," I said. "It's Christmas." "But why didn't you tell us?" she asked, her voice softer now. "Because," I said slowly, "you were too busy laughing." Silence stretched between us. Then she said quietly, "I'm sorry, Brielle. Really. We shouldn't have done that." "It's okay," I said, though part of me wanted her to sit with the guilt a little longer. I know it was just in the moment. I hung up and leaned back in my chair, sipping my coffee, letting the sweet taste of poetic justice settle on my tongue. Within minutes, my phone was flooded with messages, screenshots of card balances, apologies disguised as curiosity, and confused emojis from my parents. My mother finally called. "Brielle," she said softly, "we just checked our cards. Your father's is for 2,000 and mine is for 5. Are you sure this isn't a mistake?" "It's not," I said. "I meant every gift." "Oh, sweetheart," she said, her voice trembling. "We didn't realize." "We thought—" "I know what you thought," I interrupted gently. "And it's fine, I'm just glad you opened them." I could hear her sniffle on the other end. "You're such a good girl. We don't deserve you." I smiled faintly. "Maybe not, but I love you anyway." When I hung up, I felt a strange mix of emotions. Pride, satisfaction, and a flicker of sadness. I hadn't planned for the reveal to come so soon, but now that it had, I couldn't deny the small thrill that came with knowing they were all scrambling. I turned on some soft Christmas music and started making pancakes, humming to myself. By noon, my family group chat was blowing up with messages, apologies, thank yous, and endless shock. Marcy sent a long message about how generous I'd been and how she felt terrible for laughing. Fiona wrote that she didn't mean it personally and that she'd just been surprised. My father wrote a simple message, "Proud of you." For a second, I almost felt bad. Almost. I knew their guilt wasn't really about kindness. It was about being exposed. Their laughter had made them look small, and now they were trying to patch it with politeness. Still, it was fascinating to watch the transformation happen. Just one night ago, I had been the family disappointment. Now I was the golden child, with a halo made of $signs. Later that afternoon, Marcy showed up at my apartment with a box of pastries. She stood in the doorway, looking sheepish. "Can I come in?" she asked. "Sure." She set the box on the table and sat down. "I just wanted to say I'm sorry," she said sincerely. "I shouldn't have laughed. It wasn't fair to you." I studied her face for a moment, trying to gauge if it was genuine. She looked tired, her eyes softer than usual. "It's okay," I said finally. "We've all said things we regret." She nodded slowly. "Still, I feel terrible. You didn't deserve that." I gave a small smile. "Maybe it's good that it happened. Maybe it'll make next Christmas a little more real." She chuckled awkwardly. "Yeah, real." We sat there in silence for a while, sipping coffee, the air filled with unspoken words. For the first time in years, I felt like I held the power in our relationship, and not because of money. Because I'd handled everything with quiet strength. I hadn't yelled. I hadn't sought revenge. I'd simply let the truth speak for itself. But deep down, I knew this wasn't the end. People like my family didn't change overnight. They'd seen the money, but they hadn't learned the lesson yet. That would take time and maybe a little more guidance. But the real mistake was theirs underestimating me. The same mouths that mocked me last night were now dripping with guilt. My phone didn't stop buzzing for the next 2 days. One by one, my family members called, texted, and even left voice messages filled with awkward apologies. It was almost comical how quickly mockery had turned to remorse once $signs entered the picture. On Christmas Eve, I was the butt of every joke. By the day after Christmas, I was their newfound saint. Marcy called first that morning, her voice unusually soft. "Brielle, I just wanted to thank you again. You didn't have to be so generous. I feel horrible about it, how I acted." "It's okay, Marcy," I said, stirring my coffee. "It was just a misunderstanding." "No," she insisted. "It was me being a jerk. I laughed at you. I made you feel small, and you still gave me something so kind. I don't know how you do it." "Do what?" I asked. "Be so forgiving." I smiled faintly. "Maybe because I know what it's like to be misunderstood." She went quiet for a moment before saying, "You're a better person than I am." I didn't argue. Later my father called. He didn't apologize directly, he never did, but his tone had softened. "You did good, kiddo," he said. "Real good. You surprised all of us." "I guess so," I said. "Well, you've proven yourself," he continued. "We always knew you had potential." I couldn't help but smirk. Potential? As if generosity was some kind of competition. "Thanks, Dad," I said. "That means a lot." After him came Fiona's call, which I almost didn't answer. When I did, her voice was syrupy sweet. "Hey, Brie." "Oh my God, I just wanted to say thank you. I didn't realize what a thoughtful gift that was. You totally got us good." "I wasn't trying to get anyone," I said calmly. "I just wanted to give something meaningful." "Well, it was definitely memorable," she laughed, trying to sound casual. "We were just joking, you know. You know how we are." I smiled into the phone, though she couldn't see it. "Yes," I said slowly. "I know exactly how you are." She paused, catching my tone. "Right. Well, anyway, you're amazing, and I feel so bad about last night. Hope we're good?" "We're good, Fiona." "Perfect," she said quickly. "Maybe we can go shopping sometime, use our cards together." I laughed softly. "We'll see." When I hung up, I sat back in my chair and exhaled. It was strange, the sudden reversal of power. For years, I'd been the one trying to earn their approval, their respect. But now, without even trying, I had both. They were tripping over themselves to make things right. It wasn't about the money anymore, it was about guilt management. People like my family didn't know how to handle shame, so they covered it with kindness, pretending it never happened. My mother was the last to reach out that evening. She invited me over for dinner, just her and my dad. "We want to thank you properly," she said. "I'm making your favorite beef stew." Part of me wanted to decline, but something in her tone sounded genuine, so I agreed. That night, I sat across from my parents in their candlelit dining room. My mother served me a steaming bowl of stew and smiled like she hadn't insulted me 3 nights ago. "You've grown into such a fine young woman," she said warmly. We may not always show it, but we're proud of you. My father nodded. You've handled yourself with grace. You didn't have to do what you did, but it says a lot about your character. I stirred my stew slowly, letting their words sink in. Grace. Character. Words they'd never used for me before. I wasn't sure whether to feel touched or amused. I just wanted to do something special, I said. You did, my mother replied, reaching across the table to squeeze my hand. You reminded us what Christmas is supposed to be about. I smiled, and for a fleeting moment, I believed her. Maybe they were learning. Maybe something real had shifted beneath all that glitter and greed. But when I got home later that night and scrolled through social media, I saw Fiona's latest post. A photo of her holding her gift card with the caption, "When your cousin finally redeems herself, Merry Richmas." I sighed. Of course. Some lessons take longer to learn. Still, I wasn't angry. I knew that genuine remorse couldn't be forced, it had to grow naturally. And for the first time, I had the patience to wait. Over the next few days, the tone in our family chat changed completely. Everyone was polite, overly sweet even. Marcy invited me to brunch. Fiona kept tagging me in motivational posts about generosity. My mother sent me good morning texts with heart emojis. It was almost unsettling how nice they'd become. I could tell they were trying to rewrite the narrative to paint themselves as supportive, loving, grateful. But beneath all that sugar was the same bitterness, hidden just out of sight. I didn't call them out on it. I simply played along. Let them squirm. Let them live with the quiet discomfort of knowing they had misjudged me. When my mother suggested we take a family photo to remember this special Christmas, I agreed. We gathered around the tree again, smiling wide for the camera, pretending everything was perfect. The flash went off, freezing our fake harmony in one glossy frame. I looked at the picture later, at all the forced grins and polished appearances, and realized something. Money might have humbled them temporarily, but guilt wasn't the same as growth. Still, the balance had shifted. I wasn't the one being looked down on anymore, they were. Because this moment was just the beginning of their lesson. But life had one more twist to add before I could enjoy my quiet victory. A few days after that strange, overly polite truce had settled in, things took an unexpected turn. It started with a single text from Marcy early one morning. Hey, is there something wrong with the card? I blinked at the message, confused for a second. Then another notification popped up, this time from Fiona. Brielle, my card isn't working. It says frozen or inactive. What's going on? I almost laughed out loud. They'd finally hit the part I'd been waiting for. I sipped my coffee, reread their messages, and smiled. The truth was, I'd set up every card with a little condition. Each one required the recipient to contact me directly for activation. It wasn't about control, it was about accountability. I wanted to make sure they genuinely appreciated what they'd been given before they could use it. It was a test, a small one, and it looked like the test had begun. Within an hour, my phone buzzed nonstop. Marcy called first. Brielle, I think there's a mistake, she said in a rush. I tried to make a purchase, but the card was declined. The company said it was locked by the account holder. Oh? I said innocently. That's strange. Did you put a hold on them? Not exactly, I replied. It's just a security feature. The cards have to be activated properly. How? She asked, her tone nervous now. It's simple, I said, leaning back with a small smile. You just need to talk to me directly. I'll unlock it once everything's confirmed. Confirmed? Confirmed what? She asked. That you've read the message inside. Silence. Then she sighed. You mean that sentimental note? Yes, I said. That's part of it. Oh, okay. I could almost hear her flipping open the envelope on the other end of the line, unfolding the paper she had mocked 3 nights earlier. I imagined her reading the words I'd written about gratitude, about humility, about the real meaning of giving. There was another pause. Okay, she said softly. I read it. Good, I said. Now think about what it means. Once you've done that, I'll activate your card. She didn't argue. For once, Marcy had nothing to say. But before I could even set my phone down, Fiona's name popped up on the screen. Brielle, she said the moment I answered. What's happening with these cards? Mine's not working either. Are you scamming us? I chuckled. No, Fiona. You're not being scammed. Then why can't I use it? Did you read your message? I asked. What message? The one inside the envelope. You mean that little note? I didn't keep it. I thought it was just fluff. Then I guess you'll have to come over and get another one, I said calmly. Until then, the card stays locked. She groaned. This is ridiculous, Brielle. You can't just dangle thousands of dollars in front of us and then pull this nonsense. I'm not dangling anything, I said evenly. I'm just asking you to appreciate it before you spend it. She muttered something under her breath and hung up. I laughed quietly, shaking my head. My father called next, surprisingly patient. Your mother says her card isn't working, he said. Is that true? It's just a safeguard, I explained. Nothing's wrong. A safeguard? Yes. They'll all work once everyone follows the instructions I left. He was silent for a moment before saying, You really planned this out, didn't you? Maybe I did. You always were the quiet one, he said thoughtfully. Didn't realize that meant clever, too. For the first time, his tone carried respect. Genuine respect. It was strange to hear it, almost disorienting. Thanks, Dad, I said softly. Don't worry, everyone will get what's theirs. When I hung up, I sat back on the couch and stared out the window. Snow had started falling again, blanketing the neighborhood in white. Everything looked peaceful, still, untouched. But inside me, something had shifted. I wasn't the doormat I used to be. I was in control now, and not because of money, but because I had finally learned how to set boundaries. By the afternoon, my mother texted, saying, Everyone's waiting for your go-ahead. Can we talk tonight? I agreed. That evening, we gathered on a video call, my parents, Marcy, Fiona, and Mia. Their faces filled the screen, expressions ranging from nervous to guilty. So, I said cheerfully, I hear there's been some confusion about the cards. You could say that, Fiona muttered. Marcy gave her a look. We understand now, Brielle, she said sincerely. You were trying to teach us something. Not teach, I corrected gently. Remind. I could see the embarrassment in their faces, the realization that they'd failed a test they hadn't even known they were taking. I'll unlock the cards, I said finally. But before I do, I want each of you to tell me one thing you genuinely appreciate about me. Fiona rolled her eyes. Seriously? Seriously, I said firmly. It's not about the money, it's about meaning. You all treated me like a joke, and yet I still gave you something valuable. Now I just want to hear something honest in return. Marcy nodded immediately. That's fair, my father sighed. Fine. And one by one, they began to speak. It was awkward at first, forced, hesitant, but then the words started to flow, surprising even me. And for the first time in years, they needed me more than I needed them. The same people who once made me feel small were suddenly treating me like royalty. It was surreal, sitting there on that video call and watching their faces shift from pride to humility. Marcy was the first to speak, her voice soft and careful, as if she were treading on ice. Brielle, she said, I appreciate that you've always been steady. You don't lash out, even when people deserve it. I know I've hurt you before, but you've always shown grace. I nodded, holding her gaze. For once, she didn't sound rehearsed. My mother followed. You've always had a kind heart, dear, she said gently. Even when we've been dismissive, I see now that I took that kindness for granted. My father cleared his throat, looking more uncomfortable than I'd ever seen him. You've got more backbone than I gave you credit for, he admitted. I used to think you were too soft, but I was wrong. Then came Fiona. She shifted awkwardly, clearly dreading the moment. Look, she started. I might have said some stupid things. I didn't mean to hurt your feelings. I guess I just didn't realize you were capable of surprising us. It wasn't much, but from her, it was almost progress. Finally, Mia smiled shyly and said, I've always admired you, Brielle. You make things meaningful. You never try to outshine anyone, you just make people feel seen. That one hit me hardest. I felt something warm in my chest, and for a second, I had to look away. Thank you, I said quietly. All of you. There was a moment of silence before I continued. You can use your cards now. I'll unlock them while we're on this call. I tapped a few keys on my laptop, accessing the program's admin portal, and one by one, their balances lit up as active. Done, I said. They should work within a few minutes. Fiona immediately picked up her phone, testing hers. When it processed, her eyes went wide. It's working, she gasped. Oh my God, Brielle, thank you. Marcy smiled genuinely. You really didn't have to do all this. I mean it. I smiled back, though I didn't miss the shift in their tones. The same people who'd once seen me as insignificant were now tripping over their gratitude. It wasn't just about the money, it was about the power dynamic. They finally realized I wasn't someone to dismiss or mock. It felt strange, almost intoxicating, to be treated with reverence by people who had once made me feel invisible. Later that night, my mother called again, her tone warm and doting. Your father and I were just talking, she said, and we'd like to host a dinner next weekend just to celebrate you. Celebrate me? I repeated, smiling to myself. Yes, dear. To show our appreciation. It's been too long since we all truly sat together. That sounds nice, I said. Thank you. After the call ended, I stood by the window, looking out at the quiet night. Snowflakes drifted lazily past the glass, catching in the streetlights. I couldn't remember the last time I'd felt this peaceful. But underneath the calm, a part of me stayed cautious. People don't change overnight. Sometimes guilt wears a mask called gratitude. The following days were like stepping into an alternate reality. Marcy brought me breakfast the next morning, fresh croissants and coffee from my favorite cafe. Fiona texted constantly, asking how I was doing. My parents sent care packages filled with little gifts and handwritten notes. It was also performative. Every act of kindness felt like an apology wrapped in pretty paper. And yet, I couldn't deny that I enjoyed it. I'd spent years being treated like a burden. Now, they were bending over backward to prove they cared. Maybe I should have felt vindicated, but instead, I felt something more complicated, a mix of satisfaction and sadness. I didn't want their attention because they felt guilty. I wanted it because they finally saw me for who I was. Still, I decided to go along with it, to see how far their transformation would go. At the dinner that weekend, the atmosphere was almost unnervingly pleasant. Everyone laughed too loudly, complimented too much, and spoke too kindly. Fiona offered to help set the table, something she never did. My father asked about my freelance work as if he were genuinely interested. Marcy even brought up childhood memories, the kind that used to make her roll her eyes. I played my part, smiling and nodding, but part of me knew this new harmony was fragile. It wasn't built on understanding, it was built on guilt and self-preservation. After dessert, Marcy pulled me aside. Hey, she said quietly. I know we've been acting different lately, but I really mean it this time. I don't want to go back to how things were. Her eyes were sincere, glistening under the warm lights. I believe you, I said softly. Let's just take it one step at a time. She nodded, then hugged me a real hug, not the stiff kind we usually shared. For the first time in years, I felt a spark of something genuine between us. I wanted to believe it would last. But as the night wound down and everyone said their goodbyes, I caught a look on Fiona's face, something sharp, calculating, hidden behind her smile. I didn't know what she was planning, but I recognized that look. It was the look of someone who hated being humbled. I had learned to be patient, but experience had also taught me one thing. Peace never lasted long in my family. But what came next was something I never expected from my own sister. When Marcy's turn came, she hesitated, her voice trembling. It happened the following weekend. My parents invited everyone over for Sunday lunch, a simple get-together, as my mom called it. The air was thick with the scent of roasted chicken and vanilla candles, but beneath that cozy atmosphere, I could sense something different. Marcy wasn't her usual polished self. She looked nervous. Her perfect curls were slightly frizzed, and her makeup wasn't as meticulously done. She barely touched her food, which was unusual for her. After dessert, she asked if she could talk to me alone. Everyone else stayed in the living room while we stepped out onto the back patio. The winter air was crisp, our breaths visible in faint clouds. I leaned against the railing, waiting for her to speak. She took a deep breath, eyes glistening. Brielle, she said softly. There's something I need to say. I raised an eyebrow. What's going on? She looked down at her hands, fidgeting with her bracelet, the same one her husband had given her for Christmas. I've been thinking a lot about everything that happened, she said slowly. About the cards, the way we acted, the way I acted. Her voice wavered, but she kept going. I know an apology can't erase years of me treating you like you were less. You've always been kind, thoughtful, patient, and I treated that like weakness. I didn't interrupt. I wanted to hear it all. She glanced up, her eyes wet with emotion. I've always been jealous of you, she confessed. I blinked, caught off guard. Jealous of me? She nodded. You don't chase things like I do. You don't need to. You make meaning out of nothing. Meanwhile, I've spent my entire life trying to prove something to Mom, to Dad, to everyone. And no matter what I did, I never felt enough. She let out a shaky laugh. So instead of dealing with that, I mocked you. It made me feel superior. For a second, at least. Her words cut through the air, sharp and honest. For as long as I could remember, Marcy had been the perfect one, the one who never faltered, who everyone praised. The idea that she'd been envious of me felt surreal. Marcy, I said quietly, I never wanted you to feel that way. I just wanted us to be sisters. I know, she said, her voice breaking. And that's what makes it worse. You never fought back. You never tried to make me feel bad. You just stayed kind. Do you know how frustrating that is for someone like me? I smiled faintly. I might have an idea now. She laughed weakly, wiping her eyes. When you gave those cards, I realized how wrong I've been. You didn't have to do that, not after how we treated you. And yet you did. It made me look at myself differently. She looked away, staring at the snowy yard. I told Trevor I don't want to live like that anymore, constantly chasing approval or trying to one-up people. I want to be better, for real this time. Her honesty caught me off guard. I had expected polite regret, maybe a surface-level apology, but this was raw, unfiltered. Marcy, I said, I appreciate you telling me this. It means a lot. I mean it, she said earnestly. I'm sorry for every time I belittled you. Every time I made a joke at your expense. You didn't deserve it. You've always been stronger than any of us. I felt tears prick my own eyes. I reached out and took her hand. Thank you, I whispered. That means more than you know. We stood there in silence for a moment, the cold wind brushing against us. For the first time in years, the distance between us seemed to dissolve. She hugged me tightly, her body trembling slightly. I hugged her back, feeling the sincerity in her embrace. Inside, I could see our family through the window, laughing, drinking coffee, oblivious to the small miracle happening just a few feet away. When we went back inside, everyone could sense the shift. Marcy's face was softer, her tone calmer. Even Fiona looked surprised when Marcy handed her a cup of cocoa with a quiet, "Here." My mother smiled, whispering something to my father. Mia looked at me, her expression warm and knowing. "You two made peace," she whispered when I sat down beside her. "We did," I said. Finally. For the rest of the evening, there was a strange serenity in the house. No snide remarks, no comparisons, no backhanded compliments. Just conversation, real conversation. Fiona even joined in without trying to make everything about herself. It felt almost too good to be true. After everyone left, Marcy lingered behind to help Mom clean up. Before she went home, she hugged me again and said, "Thank you for giving me another chance." "You didn't need one," I replied. "You just needed to see it." That night, as I sat alone in my apartment, I felt lighter. Maybe this was the change I had hoped for all along. Maybe the storm had finally passed. But life has a funny way of testing how real peace truly is. Because just when I started to believe things were healing, something else happened, a reminder that some lessons come with more than one chapter. A few days later, Fiona called me again. Her voice was sharp, her tone impatient. "Hey Brielle, I just checked my card balance, and something weird's going on. The funds, are they supposed to expire?" "No," I said cautiously. "Why?" "Because mine's showing 0, she snapped. "You didn't reverse it or something, did you?" "No, Fiona. That's not how they work," I said slowly. "Then why is mine empty?" she demanded. My chest tightened. I hadn't touched the cards since unlocking them. If something was wrong, it wasn't from my side. "Let me look into it," I said. "I'll call you back." But as I hung up, I couldn't shake the uneasy feeling that this wasn't just a technical glitch. Something darker was brewing beneath the surface, something I hadn't seen coming. But fate wasn't done testing whether forgiveness could survive greed. A week later, the old habits started creeping back. I should have known peace in my family never lasted long. It started with little things, a tone here, a question there, but before long, it grew into something heavier, something familiar. Fiona's call about her missing funds had stirred the pot. By the next morning, my mother texted me nervously. "Sweetheart, your cousin says her card isn't working anymore. Is there something we should know?" I sighed. I'd already checked with the program's support team. There was no issue. Fiona had either misused the card or spent more than she wanted to admit. But instead of owning up to it, she decided to stir drama. Some things never change. Around noon, I got a call from my father. Brielle, he said carefully. There's some confusion about these cards. Fiona says hers is empty. Marcy says hers worked, but now she's worried hers might stop too. Did you set them up with expiration dates or limits? No, I said calmly. They're prepaid luxury cards. They don't expire unless misused. Misused? He repeated. Like how? Like trying to transfer balances, sell access, or register under another name, I said pointedly. He hesitated. That told me everything. Fiona had probably tried to cash hers out somewhere shady. I'll sort it out, I said. Tell everyone to stop speculating. All right, he said, though his voice carried that familiar tension, the kind that came when money was involved. By evening, I got another call. This time, it was Marcy. Hey, she began softly. I know you're probably tired of all this, but Fiona's making a scene in the group chat. What kind of scene? I asked. She's saying you did this on purpose. That you gave us fake cards just to make us feel stupid. I rolled my eyes. Of course she is. I told her that's ridiculous. Marcy continued quickly. Mine's fine, Mom's too. But she's… Well, you know how Fiona is. She doesn't like not being the center of attention. Yeah, I said. I remember. The next day, I woke up to a flood of messages in our family group chat. Fiona had gone off the rails. Brielle's little generous stunt was all for show. It's humiliating she's playing us like we're in one of her morality games. My father had tried to calm her down, but it only made things worse. Of course you'd take her side, she wrote. You all love being the heroes of her little story. I didn't respond. I'd learned long ago that silence unnerves people more than any defense. And it did. Fiona sent me a private message soon after. You think you're better than us because you pulled some rich girl magic trick? You're not. You're manipulative. I read it once, then deleted it. Marcy called again that night, sounding exhausted. She's out of control, she said. I told her to stop, but she's twisting everything. She said you're trying to teach us lessons like we're children. Maybe that's what she needs. I said coolly. Maybe we all did. Yeah, Marcy murmured. But you didn't deserve this. You were trying to be kind. I smiled at her words, even though they hurt a little. Kindness had become a double-edged sword in this family. The more I gave, the more they doubted my intentions. Don't worry about me, I said. Fiona's just embarrassed. She'll calm down when she realizes the problem's on her end. But she didn't calm down. If anything, she doubled down. 2 days later, I got a call from the luxury card company. Miss Larkin, the representative said. We've received multiple reports from your recipients attempting to bypass security restrictions. Bypass? I asked. Yes, ma'am. 2 accounts flagged for fraudulent attempts to withdraw funds. I sighed. Let me guess, Fiona? Yes. The rep confirmed. And another under your father's name, though his was blocked before processing. I thanked them and hung up, pinching the bridge of my nose. So that was it. Greed had slithered its way back in, poisoning the fragile harmony I'd built. That night, I got another call this time from my mother, her tone sharp. Brielle, what's happening? Fiona says you accused her of fraud. I didn't accuse anyone, I said calmly. The system did. Well, now she's saying you set her up to look bad. Mom, I said, my patience thinning. She tried to transfer money illegally. The system caught it. That's on her. She's family, my mother insisted. Can't you just unlock it? No, I said firmly. If I do, the company will flag all the accounts including yours. You'll lose everything. She went silent, then sighed. I just wish things could go back to how they were. I laughed bitterly. How they were? You mean when you all laughed at me over dinner? That's not what I meant, she said softly. We just need peace. Peace doesn't come from pretending nothing happened, Mom. It comes from learning something. She didn't respond. After we hung up, I sat there in the quiet, watching snow fall outside my window. The streetlights glowed against the drifts, and for the first time since Christmas Eve, I felt that familiar ache in my chest again. I had wanted to believe they'd changed. I had wanted to believe love could outgrow greed. But maybe I'd been wrong. Maybe some people only see kindness as currency, Still, there was one thing left. I could do something that might finally reveal who they truly were. A test, yes, but a fair one. One that would separate sincerity from selfishness once and for all. I decided to give one final surprise. The air was thick with expectation the night of the dinner. My mother had insisted on hosting it to clear the air, she said, but I could sense the real reason before I even walked through the door. They were hoping I'd announce that the card issue was resolved, that all the balances, the luxuries, the shiny comfort of those thousands would be theirs again, untangled, unquestioned. But I had a different plan. The dining room was glowing with warm candlelight, soft music filling the silence between polite smiles. I could feel their eyes on me the moment I entered. Fiona was already there, her arms crossed, lips pursed, still nursing her grudge. Marcy sat beside her, calm but cautious, as though she sensed something coming. My parents looked hopeful, maybe too hopeful. And Mia, sweet Mia, just gave me a gentle nod, her expression a quiet encouragement to do what I needed to do. "I'm glad everyone's here," I said, setting down the small stack of envelopes I'd brought with me. The table fell silent. The only sound was the crackle of the fireplace. "Before we eat," I continued, "I wanted to say thank you for being here, for listening, and for trying. I know things have been tense." My mother smiled nervously. "That's all behind us, dear. We're family." I nodded. "Yes. And family should always be honest with each other. Which is why tonight we're going to do something a little different." Fiona groaned. "Oh, here we go," she muttered. I ignored her and began passing out the envelopes. "Inside each one," I explained, "is a small piece of paper. I want you to write down what you'd do with the money from your gift card if it were still available, what you'd spend it on, or how you'd use it. Just be honest, don't overthink it." My father frowned. "What's this for?" "Perspective," I said simply. "Humor me." Reluctantly, they all took their envelopes. The sound of pens scratching filled the room. I watched their faces, their hands, their expressions. It was fascinating how some people wrote quickly, while others hesitated as if trying to guess the right answer. Fiona was done first, sliding her paper back across the table with an eye roll. "There," she said. "Can we eat now?" "Not yet," I said softly. "We'll go one by one." My mother shifted uncomfortably, but no one protested. "Let's start with you, Fiona," I said. "Read it out loud." She sighed dramatically and unfolded her paper. "I'd buy myself something nice, maybe a new necklace, or finally take that Bali trip I've been talking about." She shrugged. "It's my money, right?" "Sure," I said calmly. "Thank you for being honest." I turned to my father. "Your turn." He cleared his throat. "I'd use it to fix up the cabin," he read. "Maybe take your mother somewhere warm for a change." I smiled faintly. "That's sweet." My mother went next. "I'd donate some to charity," she read, her tone overly polished, rehearsed. "And maybe use the rest to treat the family to a vacation. We deserve one after this year." I nodded. Noted. Finally, I looked at Marcy. She had been quiet the whole time, her hands folded tightly in front of her. "What about you?" I asked. She hesitated before opening her paper. "I'd use it to help Brielle start her own business," she read softly. The room went still. "You'd... what?" Fiona blurted. "You'd give it back to her?" Marcy lifted her eyes. Steady but kind. "Yes, she deserves it. She's done more for this family in the last few weeks than any of us have in years." My mother's lips parted slightly, surprised. My father looked down, embarrassed. Fiona scoffed. "Oh, please. She doesn't need charity." "It's not charity," Marcy snapped. "It's gratitude." I felt something catch in my throat. "Thank you," I said quietly, my voice thick. "That means a lot, Marcy." She gave a small smile. "I meant it." I looked around the table. "Does anyone else want to change their answers?" Silence. My parents exchanged glances but said nothing. Fiona looked annoyed, shifting in her seat. I took a slow breath, then placed a small black folder on the table. "Then it's time I tell you the truth," I said. Fiona frowned. "What truth?" I met her gaze squarely. "The cards still exist. None of them were cancelled. I had control the entire time." The air seemed to freeze. My mother blinked. "What do you mean?" "I mean," I said calmly, "that the accounts were never frozen. I locked them manually after I noticed the first fraudulent transfer attempt." Fiona's face turned red. "You think that was me?" I don't think, I said. I know. That's insane, she yelled. You're framing me to make yourself look good. I shook my head slowly. I don't need to frame anyone. Actions speak for themselves. My father looked at Fiona. Did you really try to transfer the funds? It was a mistake, she snapped. I didn't know it wasn't allowed. You tried 3 times, I said quietly. You called. Customer support pretending to be me. Her mouth fell open, speechless for once. My mother looked horrified. Marcy leaned back, shaking her head. Wow, she murmured. I slid the folder toward the center of the table. Inside are updated cards. Only one of them is active. The others have been deactivated permanently. Active? My father repeated slowly. You mean, only one person gets access to their funds, I said. The one who truly understood what this was about. I turned to Marcy, meeting her eyes. It's yours. Fiona slammed her hands on the table. What? That's not fair. Life isn't, I said simply. You treated generosity like a game. Marcy treated it like a gift. That's the difference. My mother tried to speak, but my father held up his hand, silencing her. Marcy stared at the folder, stunned. Brielle, I can't take this. You can, I said softly. Because you earned it. She shook her head, tears filling her eyes. I don't deserve it. You do, I said, smiling. You finally saw me. The room stayed silent for a long, heavy moment. The fire crackled softly in the background. Fiona looked like she might explode. My parents sat frozen, guilt etched across their faces. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't the one shrinking under their judgment, I was the one holding the light. That was the moment I knew who deserved everything and who didn't. With a deep breath, I revealed the final twist. The silence in that room could have cracked glass. I could see the disbelief on every face, the shifting glances, the guilt settling like fog around the table. Marcy's hands trembled as she held the envelope I'd pushed toward her, her knuckles white against the ivory paper. Fiona's expression was pure outrage, half embarrassment, half fury. My parents didn't speak, too stunned by what had just unfolded. I stood slowly, resting my palms on the table. All of this, I began softly, was never about the money. It was about what money reveals, Fiona scoffed. Oh please, spare us the Hallmark speech. You tricked us, Brielle. I met her gaze calmly. No, I gave you a chance to show who you are. You just failed the test. A test? She snapped. You think you're some kind of moral judge? No, I said evenly. I think I'm someone who got tired of being mocked by people who measure love with price tags. Marcy looked down, her voice shaking. Brielle, I really can't take this. It doesn't feel right. That's exactly why it's yours, I said. Because you don't want it. You understand what it means. She blinked, and for a moment, emotion flickered behind her eyes, guilt, gratitude, humility. I only wrote what I felt, she murmured. You shouldn't have to reward me for that. It's not a reward, I said. It's a reflection. Fiona slammed her hand on the table. This is ridiculous. You're just trying to humiliate me. My father finally spoke, his tone low but firm. Fiona, enough. No, it's not enough, she snapped. She's turning this into a morality play. We all made mistakes, why should she get to decide who deserves what? Because I'm the one who gave it, I said quietly. For a few seconds, no one spoke. The flames in the fireplace flickered softly, casting long shadows across the room. My mother's voice broke the silence. Brielle, she said gently, I think what you did was extraordinary. But maybe it's time to let it go. The lesson's been learned. I turned to her. Has it though? Or is everyone just uncomfortable because, for once, I'm not the one being laughed at? She looked away, unable to answer. My father cleared his throat. Maybe we all needed this, he said finally. You're right, Brielle. We did judge you. We thought we knew better, and we didn't. His honesty surprised me. He'd never been one to admit fault. Thank you, Dad, I said. That means more than you think. Fiona stood abruptly, pushing her chair back. You can all pretend this is some deep life lesson, but I'm not staying here to be preached to. She grabbed her purse and stormed out, slamming the door so hard the wreath fell off its hook. No one moved for a while. Then my mother sighed heavily. I suppose some people aren't ready to grow. No, I said softly. They're not. Marcy sat there quietly, still staring at the envelope. Finally, She pushed it back toward me. Keep it, she said. You've already given me something more valuable than money. Marcy, no, listen, she said firmly. That night you gave us those cards. I realized how wrong I've been. I saw what my jealousy did to us. You can't buy that kind of clarity. So please, don't give me this money. Use it for yourself. Do something beautiful with it. Her words nearly broke me. I hadn't expected humility. I hadn't expected love. You sure? I asked quietly. She nodded. Positive. I swallowed hard, then smiled. All right, I said softly. I will. I looked around the table. My father looked tired but peaceful. For once, there was no tension, no sarcasm, no pretending, just stillness. I took the envelope back, holding it against my chest. I didn't do any of this to hurt you, I said. I just wanted to show that giving isn't about showing off. It's about intention. You all forgot that. And now we'll remember, my father said. For good this time. We finished dinner quietly. The laughter that returned later wasn't fake, it was soft, genuine, unguarded. My mother brought out pie, and for the first time in years, it felt like family again. Marcy helped me wash dishes afterward, both of us laughing about old memories. When it was time to leave, she hugged me tightly. Don't disappear on us again, she whispered. We need your light. I smiled. You have your own now. You just have to stop hiding it. She nodded, tears in her eyes. My parents walked me to the door, their faces calm and kind. Drive safe, sweetheart, my mother said. And thank you for everything. Merry Christmas, I said softly. The cold air hit my face as I stepped outside, but it felt fresh, almost cleansing. I glanced up at the sky, thick gray clouds shifting apart to reveal a faint sprinkle of stars. For once, I felt free. The pain, the humiliation, the resentment, it had all transformed into something else. Peace. I drove home with the radio playing softly, my thoughts drifting to what Marcy had said. Maybe I really could do something beautiful with what was left. Not to prove anything, but to start something new, something that was mine. That night, I saw which love was real and which was just expensive wrapping. After that Christmas, everything changed for better and worse. In the weeks that followed, our family group chat went unusually quiet. Fiona had gone dark, no calls, no texts. Not even her usual stream of vacation photos and bragging posts. My mother told me she'd blocked everyone after the dinner incident. I wasn't surprised. Some people don't know how to face the mirror once the reflection stops flattering them. My parents, on the other hand, seemed softer. My dad started calling me every Sunday, something he hadn't done since college. Mom sent me recipes and asked about my freelancing projects like she actually cared. It wasn't perfect, but it felt honest. For once, they weren't talking to me out of obligation. They were talking to me because they wanted to. Marcy and I grew even closer. She called almost every day, just to talk. No hidden agendas or backhanded compliments. We'd laugh about random things, the way Mom still organized her spices alphabetically, or how Fiona probably hadn't spoken to Trevor in weeks after her embarrassment. There was an ease between us I'd never felt before, like sisters who'd finally put their pride away and remembered they shared blood, not just history. One afternoon in late January, she came over with coffee and a folder. I've been thinking about what you said, she told me, setting the folder on my kitchen table. About doing something beautiful with that money. I raised an eyebrow. Oh? You've always wanted to start your own creative agency, right? I nodded slowly. Yeah, but that's just a dream. Freelancing barely pays the bills. She smiled. Then let's make it real. Inside the folder were sketches, name ideas, and business plans, things she'd clearly worked hard on. I want to help you, she said. You have the talent. I have the experience. Together, we can make this work. My throat tightened. Marcy, you don't have to. I want to, she interrupted. You helped me see what really matters. I've been chasing money and status for so long that I forgot how to actually build something meaningful. Her sincerity floored me. I don't know what to say. Say yes, she said with a smile. And I did. Over the next few months, we started planning everything. It was messy at first, late nights, disagreements over branding, budgeting headaches, but there was something powerful about creating from scratch. For once, we weren't competing. We were collaborating. By spring, we launched our small agency Lark and Lane Creative. The name came from a blend of our middle names, a symbol of partnership and rebirth. When we signed our first client, we celebrated with cheap champagne in my apartment, laughing until our stomachs hurt. My parents were thrilled when they heard. "We're proud of you girls," Dad said. "Both of you," Mom teared up. "It's so wonderful seeing you two working together instead of fighting," I smiled, realizing how rare that moment was, hearing genuine pride without the shadow of comparison. But even as new beginnings bloomed, the past still lingered. Fiona never reached out. Word through the family grapevine was that she'd moved to California, chasing some new business opportunity. I didn't hate her for it. In a strange way, I felt sorry for her. Some people would rather start over somewhere else than admit they were wrong. That summer, Marcy and I rented a small cabin by the lake to celebrate our success. It wasn't extravagant, but it was peaceful. We sat on the porch one evening, watching the sun sink below the waterline. "You know," Marcy said softly, "if you hadn't done all that with the gift cards, none of this would have happened." I laughed. "You mean the chaos?" She smiled. "No, the growth. You changed everything without even realizing it." I thought about it for a moment. Maybe she was right. That Christmas had stripped us bare, forced us to see what really mattered. It wasn't the money that changed us. It was the reflection it forced us to face. "I guess sometimes you have to break things to rebuild them," I said. "Exactly." The air was cool, the lake glimmering under the fading light. We sat there in comfortable silence. Two sisters who'd finally found common ground. By the time December rolled around again, life looked completely different. Our agency was thriving. I'd moved into my own apartment again, and my relationship with my parents had settled into something genuine and warm. I hadn't heard from Fiona in almost a year, and truthfully, I'd made peace with that. Not every bridge deserves rebuilding. That Christmas, Marcy and I decided to keep things small. We spent the evening at her house with hot cocoa, old movies, and homemade cookies. No grand gestures, no expensive gifts, just laughter and peace, the kind that doesn't need to be bought. As we sat by her tiny, decorated tree, I realized how far we'd come. The girl who once wrapped her heart in gift cards to prove her worth had learned she didn't need to prove anything anymore. Kindness, it turned out, was its own kind of wealth. Just as I was about to say it out loud, there was a knock at the door. Marcy frowned. "Expecting anyone?" "No," I said. She opened it to find a courier standing there, holding a white envelope with my name written in neat handwriting. "Delivery for Brielle Larkin," he said. I signed for it, puzzled. There was no return address. I opened it slowly, my breath catching as I saw what was inside a simple Christmas card with my mother's handwriting on the front. But the biggest surprise came when an unexpected envelope arrived in the mail. Inside the envelope was a handwritten card from my mother. The moment I saw her familiar cursive, neat and graceful, my hands began to tremble slightly. It wasn't unusual for my mother to send cards, but this one felt different. There was no glitter, no gold trim, no extravagant font. Just a plain white card with a red border and her careful writing across the front. "To my daughter, with love." I sat down on Marcy's couch, the twinkle lights from the Christmas tree casting soft reflections on the card. Marcy sat beside me, watching quietly as I opened it. Inside, there was a short note written in my mother's tidy, deliberate script. "My dear Brielle, I've written and rewritten this letter so many times, but I think it's finally time to say what's been sitting in my heart for years. I was wrong. About you, about what matters, about what it means to give. That Christmas, when I laughed at your gift, I saw something ugly in myself that I didn't want to see. You gave from your heart, and I judged you by the paper it came in. It took me too long to understand that generosity isn't about the amount, it's about intention. You've shown us more grace than we deserved. I hope you can forgive me. Not because you owe it, but because you've already taught me what forgiveness looks like. You've made me proud in ways money never could. Merry Christmas, my sweet girl. Love, Mom." For a long moment, I couldn't speak. My throat tightened, my vision blurred with tears that came too quickly to stop. Marcy leaned closer, reading over my shoulder, and I felt her hand wrap around mine. "Wow," she whispered softly. "She really means it." I nodded, my chest aching in that bittersweet way only true healing can bring. But there was more. Inside the card, tucked behind the letter, was a small gift card, simple, No brand name, no ribbon, just plain and white. On the back, my mother had written in pen, "Value, $50. I stared at it, smiling through my tears. "A gift card," I murmured. Marcy laughed softly. "She really brought it full circle." "Yeah," I said, my voice breaking a little. "But this one means more than all the others combined. Because it wasn't about the amount, it was about the humility it represented. The acknowledgement. The change." I wiped my eyes and carefully placed the card back in the envelope. "I think I'm going to frame it," I said. "Not because it's worth anything, but because it finally means everything." Marcy smiled. "She's growing, Brie. We all are." That night, I decided to call my mom. When she answered, her voice was soft but steady. "Sweetheart," she said. "You got my letter?" "I did," I said, my voice trembling with warmth. "Thank you." "I wasn't sure if I should send it," she admitted. "Your father told me to just call, but I wanted you to have something you could hold." "I'm glad you did," I whispered. "It's the best gift I've ever gotten." There was a pause on the line before she said quietly, "We'd love to have you over for Christmas next year. Just us. No fuss, no show." "I'd like that," I said. "I'd really like that." And I meant it. A year later, I found myself walking up the familiar path to my parents' house again. But this time, everything felt different. There were no expensive cars lined up outside, no designer gowns or exaggerated laughter spilling from the windows. Just soft music, gentle laughter, and the smell of cinnamon rolls wafting through the open door. My mother greeted me first, dressed in a simple sweater and jeans. "Merry Christmas, sweetheart," she said, her eyes shining. "Merry Christmas, Mom." My father came up behind her, smiling warmly. "Look who's here, the woman who taught us how to celebrate properly." I laughed, hugging them both. Marcy was already there, helping set the table, humming along to an old holiday tune. Everything about that day felt real, the kind of real I'd always dreamed Christmas could be. We didn't exchange expensive gifts. Instead, we each gave something handmade, something from the heart. My father built me a small wooden jewelry box. My mother knitted Marcy a scarf. I gave them framed photos of our old family Christmases, each one labeled with a memory we'd long forgotten. And in the middle of all of it, for the first time in years, laughter filled the house again. The kind of laughter that didn't sting. During dinner, my mother raised her glass. "To Brielle," she said softly, "for reminding us what matters." I smiled, feeling the warmth of their love settle deep inside me. "To family," I said. "To second chances." After dessert, I went to the living room to help clear the wrapping paper. My mother stopped me. "Wait," she said. "There's one more thing under the tree." I bent down and pulled out a small envelope, another gift card. This one was bright red, with gold lettering that read, "Love is the greatest gift." Inside was a note written in my father's handwriting this time. "This time it's our turn to give. Thank you for never giving up on us." I looked up at them, tears blurring my vision again. "You two," I whispered, smiling. "You're really not making it easy to stay composed tonight." My mother laughed. "Consider it payback." We all laughed then, loud, genuine, unguarded laughter that filled the house with warmth. For the first time in forever, Christmas didn't feel like a performance. It felt like home. Later that evening, as snow began to fall outside, I stood by the window with a cup of cocoa, watching my family laughing together. Marcy leaned on the back of the couch, smiling softly at me. "You did it, you know," she said. "You changed us." "No," I said quietly, my eyes on the snow. "We changed each other." She smiled. "Merry Christmas, Brie." "Merry Christmas, Marcy." The fire crackled, the tree lights flickered, and somewhere deep inside, I knew that the circle was complete. The girl who once cried in silence had built a family that finally understood love, and that's how the gift they mocked became the gift that changed us all.